Race finish here. Prospect Park race. Saturday morning, August 3rd. It was a fast race, over 28 miles per hour. And to this point, I did a pretty good job of racing pretty smart. And what do I mean by that? Despite its speed, I did not have to expend a lot of energy because I did not chase down any moves where all major teams weren't represented. I wasn't bridging gaps that I didn't need to bridge. I wasn't expending energy that I didn't need to. And so for the first 75 minutes of the race, I'm doing what I need to do to set myself up for a decent finish. And then all of that kind of changes as we get into crunch time when it matters. So we have about a lap and a quarter to go. How Prospect Park is, it's a little bit over a 3-mile loop, and there's about a 1-minute hill here. And you could see me closing a gap. And there were 4 guys jumping. We're on this 1 minute or so hill, and then there's a false flat downhill that rolls about 500 or 600 meters to the finish line. And I decide to close this gap with 4 guys jumping up the hill. And it was a little strung out at this point, but most significant teams in the race, Big Hit primarily, and then there were some other teams with pretty good representation. You're not going to see any of them here. And that's why this was a mistake. The chances of this move going are low. And then also, Big Hit, let alone the other teams, have 8 guys in the race who are going to be able to chase this down. So I know it's a mistake. Decide not to compound, to let it compound. So I drop the wheel here. And now here comes the field. That's Big Hit there in the blue. But once again, I then find myself kind of in this no man's land. So I was hoping that it was going to be kind of the whole field coming back, but it was sort of this chase-ish thing of 4 riders, and the group is still a little bit further back from me. So I'm kind of in this no man's land where I don't want to roll back there because this is potentially threatening, but I'm not on the wheel, so I'm doing 500 watts here, not in a draft. And spoiler, this didn't go. I think there was a low chance of it going. And so I think the move here is, because more of the major teams were represented, either I want to snap on that wheel immediately, or I should drop back completely to the field and start saving energy as quickly as I can. But I didn't do that, and it's not game over at this point. We're approaching typically an easy section of the park. It's largely downhill, so you see the power come down. I'm able to catch my breath. And what I'm thinking at this point, as we're now in the final lap, is I want to stay around 10th wheel, I'll say. Don't want to drift further than 20th. So a guy jumps there, and another one follows. I'm not going to chase that down. Certainly not without the other teams chasing, and then it's unlikely that a 2-man move is going to be able to stick here. And so now, because it's race finish, we're within the final lap. I have it in my mind that I want to stay around 10th wheel, but that can get pretty difficult when you get down to crunch time here. Kind of fully in the washing machine. Everyone's fighting for wheels, vying for position. This isn't physically taxing. I'm not having to do much power. I'm benefiting from a really good draft. We're going downhill. It is kind of mentally taxing. And I also, because I'm in the washing machine, it's easy to lose position. And so alarm bells ringing a little bit because I'm right on that margin, I would say, here of about 20th wheel. I'm drifting further back than I would like. But we're now coming up to a fast downhill section, which is a good opportunity, especially from about 20th wheel, to make up position. And I'm able to do that here without even having to pedal. But the group slows with those 2 guys up the road. No one wants to chase it down quite yet. And I have momentum, and I'm just rolling here. I'm sorry for going across the line. And now I find myself at the front of the race. I'm not going to chase it down, but I just was rolling. And there are two big hit guys, and I'm not sure if this is going to go, and I kind of want to stay on it. So I jump to it, but that's 700 watts right there. And then there are two of them, so second in line here is about to drop the wheel. So then I have to do 600 watts to get back up to the guy in front. And it's good that I'm towards the front of the race, towards race finish, but I'm way too far ahead right now. I'm having close moves myself. I'm not benefiting from nearly as much of the draft as I would like to. And while I'm not in the worst of positions, this is certainly a position where legs can make up for the lack of positioning. That's where the errors that I was making coming into the final lap can really have a big impact, because those were matches that I spent that I'm not going to be able to spend making up for poor positioning that I might be in right now. And we do have a bit of a gap here. We probably have a couple second gap. And we're about to make the catch to these three riders here. And this guy in the front drills it. And we quickly get up to speed. I'm in the draft, and I'm hoping that he's going to be able to hold 33 miles per hour to, for the final 2K. I can just send the wheels to glory, but that's not going to happen. So he pulls off, and this is a decision point here. And I decide to ease off. Maybe what I should have done was attack. Not because I would have been able to hold it, and maybe just kind of a small attack to keep up speed, because then I'm not going to be subject to the swarm that happens right now. And in a split second, I go from second wheel to 20th wheel or 25th wheel with 1,500 meters left. Once again, it's still not race over. This isn't particularly steep. You're able to get a really good draft, but when you get in the pack like this, one, it's difficult to control positioning. You're very subject to other riders. And then this is also just a reality of park racing. We're in the middle of New York City on a beautiful Saturday morning. There are other people out, and so I venture out, try to move up position, and the guy's out for a Saturday morning cruise, and I have to squeeze brakes. I lose my wheel. I'm no longer in a draft, and with just over a K to go, I'm now doing 500 watts and going backward. So it was at this point that I knew that getting a good result was probably out of the cards. I think that top 10 was still feasible, but because of the mistakes and the matches that I burned, I don't have that many legs at this point. I don't have much legs at this point. And my max heart rate is a little bit above 190, so I'm about redlined here. And I should have just snapped on that wheel, but I don't really have legs, and I'm frustrated by the mistakes. So I ease off, and the group gets away. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Even though I wasn't going to be able to contest for a decent finish, I think just don't give up. You crush yourself on the bike for an hour and a half to give up in the final 25 seconds. I don't think that makes a ton of sense. It can make a little bit of sense because you'll be less subject to crashing. It's a little bit safer. But I think the main thing is, the errors that I made in spending energy when I really didn't need to, and then also the poor positioning, kind of oscillating between too far back and then way too far forward, all compounded, and I wasn't where I needed to be when the race finished. I roll in for 30th or something. See you on the next one.